Did you ever get to see your mom again?
Yes.
Oh.
My mother, when she was 60, the East German government let her leave East Germany. In the meantime, my brother Helmut had also escaped to West Germany, and he went through hell until he finally got settled in West Germany. But then she ended up living with him. And from there, she was able to visit us here in America twice. And the first time was in 1971 when my son was confirmed, and she came for his confirmation. And my brother Hugo, the deaf person, my husband and I sponsored for him, and he had come to America and he lived in San Diego at that time. And so we brought her here to Chicago, and then from there we bought her a ticket so she could also visit my brother in San Diego. And when she came back from there, she said, when I was young, I couldn't go any farther than the manure pile, and now I've seen paradise. So it was really wonderful. Then she came again in 1977, and after that, she had a very severe stroke, and she died at 79. Yes?
Have you been able, the years that you've been in the United States, to pretty much put all these bad memories, or do they still away, or do they still pop up occasionally, or?
You know what happened? My children didn't even know what I had gone through. They knew I was from East Germany, and they knew I had to escape from there, but they didn't really know what I had gone through. But I couldn't really talk about it. My sister Paula ended up having to stay in what used to be East Germany all those years. I couldn't ever really talk about what was going on. I always felt I should write a book about this and get it out of my system. But when the border finally came down in 1989, that was my first thought. Now I can talk about it. They are free over there. And so that's when I started. And once, it took 2 years to get it all down. Once I was done with that, my nightmares were gone. Totally. I haven't had one since then. Yes?
What happened to your father?
My father came, when he was drafted, he was stationed in Norway. He didn't see much action up there, except they were just there for occupation. After the war ended, he was in a prisoner of war camp for a little while, but then came home. And in the meantime, before my parents had problems, I mentioned before that he was a Seventh-day Adventist. He fell in love with a preacher's daughter, and when he came home, he left the family and married her eventually. So, yes.
I was wondering whether you faced a lot of challenges, Tilly, after not really having a childhood of your own, and then parenting your own children without having those experiences to draw from. Was it difficult for you being a parent?
No. Never. I had a wonderful mother. She was the best role model I could have had. I mean, the times were tough, but she was a wonderful role model for me. And I think maybe I did okay, right?
Barbara, could you comment?
Yes.
How did you meet your husband again after you were on the boat?
Okay.
With your hands.
Right. Well, I mentioned briefly before that my husband actually had lived in West Germany. It was barely across the border, but it happened to be West Germany, so the whole family was better off. He was able to finish his school properly and got into the prosthetic business, but he was not totally finished. But he was going to Pennsylvania and he worked there. He was going for a job, and he lived with Pennsylvania Dutch and rented a room. All of a sudden, he found himself very, very homesick and didn't really know a soul in this whole country. In the meantime, he had a camera on the ship, and he had taken lots of pictures, and I wanted some pictures to be able to send some home. And so I wrote to him. I had his address. The last dinner on the ship, we have a menu. I still have the menu at home. With all the with signatures from all the people at the table. I had his address in Pennsylvania. So I wrote to him and asked him if he would send me some of those pictures he had taken. And when he got my letter, he was thrilled because there was a life sign from someone he knew in America. And he said, in each letter that I will send with a picture, I will send one picture. And I needed lots of pictures. I kept writing. And finally, he came to, he was transferred to Milwaukee and worked in Milwaukee. He came to see me in Chicago. And that's when it clicked with us. And finally, he moved to Chicago. He never did go back to Germany because I wasn't going. So, yes.
During the time that you first got into West Germany, did you feel guilty because you were free and members of your family?
Yes. In fact, I felt guilty most of my life for that reason. Until why did I get so lucky? And all those people had to suffer so much all those years. Yes. Yes.
I'm curious about your Aunt Bertha, how she got to America and what did she do for a living?
Well, my Aunt Bertha, you know, and children, my mother's family, there were 9 children. They were all very poor. They all had to start working at age 14. She started working in a household in Germany on a farm when she was 14. Finally, when she was a little older, she went to Holland to work in a household. And when she was in Holland, she worked there with another lady, a young girl, and this other girl said, I'm going to immigrate to America. You want to come along? And she said, sure. So they actually, the 2 of them, got a job in Canton, Ohio, and they worked for the Hoover family, the vacuum cleaner Hoover. And she worked in a household there. And then finally she had another sister come over, and she worked there for a while too, and she loved it there. She got to go to California with these people in the winter, and because they had lots of money, they had a very nice lifestyle. And finally, but then she finally moved to Chicago, and that's where she was when I came here. She was a great lady. Oh, she was wonderful. She took me to museums as soon as I got here and took me all around, make sure I got acquainted, and now you have to go to school, and now you have to do this, and it was just wonderful. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
Did you ever think about escaping via the Baltic Sea?
No, that was impossible. Some people did, but they all drowned. Yeah, it just was impossible to get out. Yeah. So, yes?
What brought you to Rockford from Chicago?
Pardon me?
What brought you to Rockford from Chicago?
Well, actually, I had a pretty good job in Chicago. I worked for the A.C. Nielsen Company after working in the factory for a while and continuing in evening school. I got a great job at the A.C. Nielsen Company. But then my husband was drafted, and he ended up in Denver, working at the Fitzsimmons Army Hospital, doing what he does now. And so then, after he was released from the service and worked for a while, he decided, he had several patients that came from this area who said we could really use a facility in Rockford so you wouldn't have to go so far. And so we started business in Rockford in 1961. Northern